Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Little. I'm here today with another fun hand for PokerNews.com. Today we're playing a $1,000 buy-in tournament early in the day. And we are playing with 100 big blind effective stacks. We get 8-7 of spades in the cutoff. I am definitely raising. This hand is great. So I make it 300. Small blind and big blind, both completely unknown players to me, elect to call. Flop comes pretty good. King, 8-4, 2 spades. So this is a situation where we can go either way between betting or checking. Whenever you just have lots and lots of equity, you can really do whatever you want. In this spot, when my middle pair is weaker, meaning I don't mind protection, like if my opponent folds queen jack offsuit, it's not really that big of a deal. I typically bet. If I instead had, let's say, queen jack of spades on king, queen, 4 with 2 spades, I'd be more inclined to check then, because now I don't really care what card comes on the turn. Whereas here, pretty much any overcard is bad for me, right? It could very easily make my hand worst. So I think we need to continuation bets. And if I get raised, clearly we're happy enough. We're probably going to call if I get raised, given I'm in position with a very strong hand that knows if it makes the nuts on the turn. So I like betting. Pot's 900. I'm going to go something like 600, maybe 500. Mainly because the board is somewhat coordinated. It's always interesting. Whenever you have the flush draw and the pair, it's less likely for your opponents to actually have anything. And if it's less likely for them to have anything, you should actually be betting on the smaller side. So thinking about this more, I think I would probably prefer a 400 bet or maybe even a 300 bet, just because I really don't care if the opponents call that much. And if they're sitting here with queen jack offsuit, they're going to fold to pretty much any bet size. So probably 300 is better. But I did 600 this time. You can't play great all the time. Only the big blind calls, which is fine, and then we just get there on the turn. We have a flush. Life's easy. Opponent checks. Now my main concern is how do I play for a lot of my stack? Is it even possible? So if I bet, let's say 2,000 on the turn and the opponent calls, pot's going to go to 6,000, go into the river, and then I can shove for 7,000 for a slight overbet. That's fine. The problem, though, is that most likely the opponent just has a king or an 8 or pocket 9s or something like that. And if he does have a very marginal made hand, how much is he really going to call? Not a lot, right? This is a spot where you have to pick between trying to get maximum value when your opponent has a really good hand or trying to get some value when your opponent has a king. And in this spot, if you ask what is really going to call a turn humongous bet and then an all-in river bet, right? It's going to be flushes and sets. Most players are going to check raise the flop with a set, and if our opponent has a flush, well, a lot of those beat us, right? I mean, we only beat 6-3 and 3-2 suited. That make logical sense. So for that reason, I think we need to go on the small side and bet something like 800. I went 1,400 here, which I think is actually, again, one of the worst bet sizes because our opponent may start folding out kings and 8s and pocket 9s to this 1,400 bet. And if he does have a flush, clearly we're just getting the money in the pot when we're behind, assuming he has a better flush. There may be some merit in this big bet size if we think our opponent has a hand like pocket 9s with a 9 of spades that will call a lot. But like, how do you really know this random generic opponent who I've never played before in my life has pocket 9s with the 9 of spades that's going to call any bets, right? Maybe this is a fine bet size. I don't know. This is a weird one. I felt very uneasy about this entire situation because we have a good but non-nut hand on the flop. Now on the turn, if we blast it, I don't really know if we're going to get a ton of action. And 1,400 is a bet that is sort of on the cusp between very large and normal, right? And in this scenario, I think I prefer to go for a slightly smaller bet because that's going to really ensure that our opponent sticks around with an 8 or better. Whereas when I bet 1,400, I think he's going to start folding those hands sometimes, and I really don't want the opponent to fold. So 1,400 is fine. Notice it sets up a weird stack to pot ratio on the river, though. River pot is 5,000, and I have 7,700 behind. So if I'm going to bet, I'm trying to get called by pretty much only a king at this point, so I need to bet 3,000 or so. But 3,000 is kind of a lot, right? A lot of players are going to be sitting here thinking, man, I have king, queen. Am I really going to call a 3,000 bet in a situation where my opponent could just have sets and flushes and whatnot? And I don't think a lot of players will. So I'm not a big fan of the way I played this hand. I think I could have used slightly different sizings throughout, and that would have led to situations where the opponent's going to call the river with king queen a whole lot more, as opposed to now I don't really think he's going to call the river very much if I bet. So anyway, I'm going to bet. I think somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 is good. Remember, we're trying to target a king at this point, or maybe something like pocket nine's made a set, so clearly that's going to call any bet. So yeah, that seems fine. And now the opponent goes all in. That's not what I want to have happen. At this point, we have to call, how much more? We have to call 4,700 more to win a pot that's going to be 20,000. So we need to win this pot 25% of the time to justify calling. Does the opponent ever do this without a flush? That's the first question. And yeah, maybe. Maybe the opponent does have a set and just doesn't know how to play. Maybe he has a straight and just doesn't know how to play. Maybe he has ace high of spades and decided to run a check raise bluff. I don't know. It's hard to say. If the opponent is a random unknown player in a $1,000 buy-in tournament, I think this is probably just a fold. Because what are we really beating? We're beating like effectively nothing, right? If the opponent has 6-3 or 3-2 of spades, he should definitely not raise the river. I think it's the spot where when I go bet flop, bet turn, bet river, if I call this river jam, I'm probably going to have 6 high or 3 high flush draw or flush beat. Should he even jam like a 9 high flush? Probably not. Like I think all these hands are just calls. I mean, you're only getting called if the opponent is a bit of a calling station, and I mean, everyone knows I'm a little bit of a calling station, but not an extreme calling station. I'm capable of folding from time to time. Like if I did value bet king queen here, I'm definitely just folding, right? So this is close. I mean, ask yourselves, in this scenario, do you call every time or do you fold every time? And if you find that you fold every time, you're probably playing a little too tight. And if you call every time, you're probably playing a little bit too call happy. I don't know what the right play is, but like I said, I'm a bit of a calling station. I don't fold flushes. And we were against 3-2 of spades for a completely butchered river decision. And this actually demonstrates why you want to show up early in tournaments, because right here, the opponent had a very, very clear check call on the river. And instead, he decided to lose all of his money. And anytime you're against players who are going to lose all of their money when they happen to make a good but non-nut hand, that's really where you want to be playing, because you get to hang around, jockey for pots, and eventually you're going to make a really good hand, and the opponent's just going to make second best hand and give you their whole stack. Whereas whenever you make second best hand, like say I somehow called the preflop raise with 3-2 of spades, which I would not have done. But if I did do that with 3-2 of spades, I'm definitely not losing all my money here. I'm losing some money. I'm losing half my stack, but I'm not losing all of it. And this is really where good players extract value from weaker players, because in this spot, when it comes up, I lose half my stack. The opponent loses all their stack, which means every time this situation comes up, one for me, one for him, I win half of a stack, which is a lot. In this spot, we were playing a $1,000 buy-in tournament. I won $500 just because the opponent played this hand worse than I did long run. So that's going to be it for this hand for PokerNews.com. I want to thank you all for being here. If you have any questions, definitely let me know on Twitter @JonathanLittle. And be sure to come back next week and make sure you check out Poker News for lots of great poker content.